everyone, and welcome once again to the Adventures Travel Club television show. We find ourselves, of course, back at Panama, and we are just about ready to enter from the Atlantic Ocean side into the area where the Panama Canal is. And you know, Betty, I didn't realize that the Panama Canal is 50 miles long from the deep water in the Atlantic to deep water in the Pacific. And of course, I think all of us know that this was cut through one of the narrowest and lowest saddles of the long mountainous isthmus that joins both North and South America.
Yeah, that was one of the most intriguing things that I've seen. We did have a tape on that showing how it was done, a really old movie on it, like a movie. But the ingenuity that took place figuring that out, and there were a lot of men that died, building that canal. But of course, that's true always when you do a new adventure of some kind.
This happened to be a very rainy day that when we entered. At least the first part of the day was rainy on the Atlantic side. I mean, it was really coming down, and which was a welcome rain because at the time of year in April when we did this trip, they'd had a drought for quite some time, and so they were very concerned because I guess El Nino had really taken its toll in this particular area.
I found it exciting because it was warm, not hot, but it was warm. And anytime you have a rain like that, it just makes the air so clean, and it was warm, so you didn't really mind going out into the rain. It was good.
The area where we are right now, as you can see, we're outside the breakwater, so we're still in the Atlantic, and we're going to enter that breakwater. And you can see the city over there of Cologne. You know, the canal, which really surprised me, if you were looking on a map, it runs from northwest to southeast, with the Atlantic entrance being 33.5 miles north and 27 miles west of the Pacific entrance. And the air distance between the two entrances is just 43 miles, but it takes about 9 hours for the average ship to transit the canal. And of course, during this time, passengers have a great opportunity to see one of the most modern wonders of the world in operation.
I thought that part was interesting, and I still laugh about how the mules take the ship, through the locks, and how I thought when I first heard about it that mules were the animals, not little tractors.
Yeah, and those little tractors have gotten to be very, very expensive, as we'll find out later in today's show. But this interested me, Betty. You see, the officers on either side of the ship here are working controls there, and we're going to see the captain in a little while, and he almost gets himself drenched where he's standing. But we're just about ready now to enter in through the breakwater. And what surprised me, now of course you've done this trip many times before, and this was my first time, but what surprised me were the amount of ships that were here on either side of the breakwater, on the outside of the breakwater and on the inside, which I guess would be the bay, and a lot of them were anchored there,
waiting their turn.
I guess so.
It's sort of like at the airport, when you're there waiting to take off, you have all those that are ahead of you. Well, I think these ships work the same way. They have a priority.
And this is so well organized because this goes 24 hours a day. That's what amazed me. I thought, well, maybe they'll just go through during the daylight time. But a few years ago, they added lights to various areas there on the canal. And we're shooting this on either side of the ship so that you can see as we're approaching. Now, we're just passing the breakwater, as you can see, and we're going to get into the bay here. And we're coming from the Atlantic side, and we're heading west. However, as I just mentioned, heading west, we go in a really funny direction just to get there. So that's this was amazing to me. So it's a little confusing unless you really kind of look at it on a map to see that you're going in the direction that you're going, and you start further west while you're east.
Yeah, I don't think it really makes any difference. You have a destination you're going to arrive at. You have a good captain that's going to take you there, and you just trust in the Lord, and off we go. But it was funny to watch Marv run from side to side of the ship,
especially in the rain.
Yeah. Yeah. Excuse me, I have to take a picture.
Yeah. Oh, it was really interesting. I didn't know quite, what to expect. I'd seen some films on this before, and of course then you do have a pilot that comes on. In fact, here he comes right now
to take us. And you see, it was the weather, there were not big waves or anything like you might think when we talk about the rain. There was nothing in this water today to would make anybody want to even feel seasick.
Yeah.
It was
no, and the thing is, once you get inside the breakwater here too, I mean, it's not that far until you start getting into the locks here. But I was surprised because there were more than just the pilot that came off of this ship. There were a few other people that came along too. In fact, the fellow that comes over the PA system stated that there were some former officers that were taking this cruise and going through the canal. So that was kind of interesting too, and he wanted to make special note of that.
I always lean over. See those shoes? Those aren't really mine, but to me, that's one of the fun things is to lean over and see how many there are and what they're doing. And
watch what's going
on. Are they earning their money?
Oh, I think they. Yeah, I think
do.
they really do at this stage of the game. Let me tell you, it's a lot of skill to do all of this. And especially when you figure how big these ships are, especially these passenger ships, going through the locks. Now, they are widening part of the canal to handle some of these new mega ships that they have. And that was kind of interesting because, so many of the cruise lines are building bigger and bigger ships all the time. But problem is that some of them,
they won't make it, huh?
Yeah, couldn't get through there. So they are widening some of that area.
That really burns me because we're paying for things like that, and then we're giving it back to the Panamanians. Of course, we took it from them, but nevertheless, we have had a lot of money invested in the Panama Canal. I would have loved to have seen us retain possession of it.
Well,
but I'm not the.
You just weren't in Washington at the right time.
No,
right?
I wouldn't have much influence even if I was there. So that's the way the ball bounces. But it is the year 2000, Marv.
That's true.
It's going to be given back.
And a pilot ship takes off there, and then what surprised me is that another little boat came here alongside. And I thought, well, what in the world are they doing now? They're certainly not bringing any passengers on, and they weren't. They had a couple of canisters that looked like of oxygen, or maybe some type of gas that they were going to put onto the ship. So this is one way of getting it there. So
well, they have a complete hospital on all of these ships. So perhaps they were just bringing some supplies on for the hospital.
Right.
They have enough food.
Oh,
always
yes, indeed.
enough food.
Always enough food. And of course, that's the thing that everybody, I think, always looks forward to when you go on a cruise.
You had your fill of salmon, didn't you?
Oh, no, I never get my fill of salmon. I can have it 3 times a day,
No, you could not.
Oh, yeah.
For breakfast?
Sure. Yeah.
Sure, some of the places we go have salmon for
that
breakfast.
Or pickled herring or something like that.
You can have
breakfast.
the pickled herring. I don't mind the salmon for breakfast, but oh my goodness.
You don't care for the pickled herring for breakfast?
Not really. I don't care for it for lunch or dinner either. I leave it. You can have all my share.
That's good stuff, let me tell you. It's good stuff. You don't know what you're missing.
Yeah, that's because of your background. My background's a little different.
Anyway, we are in Limon Bay, and we've passed the Cristobal breakwater, of course, as we saw. Now, the sea level section of the canal and the channel on the Atlantic side is 6.5 miles long and 500 feet wide and runs through a mangrove swamp that's only a few feet above sea level in most places. And that's what we're going to see here after a little bit is the mangrove area.
What's a mangrove? What is that? A pulpy fruit? I don't think I've ever had a mangrove.
Well, that's the grove.
But doesn't there something grow in the grove?
Yeah.
What grows in the grove?
The mango trees. That's
no, but don't they have? Don't they produce?
I don't know. I didn't get out there.
Oh, now, Marv, I am very disappointed because I expect you to know all these answers.
Well, they could. That's possible. It's probably it's.
Forget it. Let's go on to the next subject.
And he also wanted me to welcome all the conquistador friends to the Panama Canal. In fact, he had mentioned to me of Mr. Ed Marion Belinsky, Walt and Judy Dick. We want to make arrangement for you to be able to wave to Captain Dell, who will be the pilot in charge of Northern going to the Panama Canal today. So once again, you're welcome to the Panama Canal. Well, as you notice, ladies and gentlemen, when the vessel came through the breakwater, our 2 canal pilots, we have Captain Cook that has the first half, and we have Captain Holden who will have So Captain Cook and Captain Holden are the two senior pilots that has the full navigational command of this ship in canal waters. That handles about 90, almost 75% of the total import to Panama. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, that this city, our port, or in the inner city, it has a population of about 150,000 people. You've also heard about the famous Canal Free Zone. The Free Zone is a multi-billion dollars import-export business run by the Panamanian government. It is also located at this Atlantic city. At one time, these piers at Cristobal were under the Canal Company organization, but because of the 1977 treaty mandates, these piers, as the piers we have over the Pacific side of Balboa, has been turned over to Panama. Well, remember that when Christopher Columbus arrived at this Atlantic coast of Panama at his fort and his last trip, he was looking for a shorter route towards the Orient. Was named after Christopher Columbus, the city of Colon, the port of Cristobal. For those of you that are on the starboard side, you can see the U.S. Army Fort Sherman.
Of course, he was talking about that when I was over on the other side of the ship. But anyway, we got a shot of it over there and in the rain, and that's the fort. And they say that the sun does come up from behind that fort. So I don't know what direction we're looking at, but anyway, that's where it is, Fort Sherman.
Oh, you're always good at directions. I don't.
Oh, you
I
get
have
turned
to
around
say
at Panama
right and
Canal.
left. You know, for
oh,
me. Then I
then
do I
you know where
turn
you
right
are?
or do I turn left? But don't tell me east or west or.
Well, it can get confusing in the canal as we see. You know, because you enter further west while you are east. So I
You
still
know,
can't
this
figure
sounds
that
like
one.
who's on first.
That's about it too, and I think that's what happens. Anyway, let's listen to our guide one more time.
The two oceans are at the same levels. Remember, the two oceans are at the same levels. The tides are different. The tides are different. Like, for instance, at this Atlantic side, we have an 8 inches tide. And that's the reason why the smallest gates that we have in the Panama Canal, they are located at the Atlantic entrance going into the Gatun locks. And each section of those gates that you're about to see in the next, I guess, 15, 20 more minutes, each section weighs 370 tons. Now, these gates are so well balanced that is only a 40 horsepower motor that opens and closes them in just 2 minutes. But in case if we should have a power failure, they could be manually operated by any one of our passengers in this ship in 30 minutes. But in 83 years of operation, we very seldom has a breakdown. That's because of the preventive maintenance that goes on in this canal 365 days a year. In fact, we spend approximately over $200 million each year in maintenance in this great canal. Now, over the Pacific side, we have a 22-foot tide. And that's the reason why the largest sets of gates are located at the Pacific side. And those are what we call the miter gates. Each section of those gates weighs 730 tons. Now, the reason why we have to raise and we have to lower the ships, because we have an artificial lake, the Gatun Lake, which was built by damming the waters of the Chagres River that before the canal construction days, this great river used to flow right out into the Atlantic Ocean through the Spanish fort at San Lorenzo, right where the U.S. had built the Gatun Dam to seal off the exit to form the massive lake. Now you're about to see this dam. When we are on our way out of the lots going into the lake, the dam is going to be on your starboard side. Lights were installed in 1962, and from 1962 until the present time, we have been in operation for 24 hours a day. So, as soon as we arrive at buoy 16 on the starboard side, you are going to see the French sea level canal. And when we arrive at buoy 13, you're going to see the turd lock on the port side, which the U.S. had begun canal construction during World War II. And why the canal should be built in Panama. Downtown, the old section of Panama City, we have a colonial flat arch which has been standing there for over 200 years. This canal is 83 years old. The flat arch is still standing there, and it has no steel in the inner structure of the flat arch. So Panama has also proven to be not only the narrowest point and the lowest point through the entire Western Hemisphere, but also proven to be the most stable. And that's the reason why the United States built this canal in this country. Well, after the sanitation aspect was fully under control, because remember, the first appointment on the U.S. went to Colonel Dr. William Crawford Gorgas, because Dr. Gorgas had worked under Walter Reed, Carlos Finley, and Major Ross, eradicated malaria and yellow fever from Cuba. So the same technique that he learned over in Cuba, he brought it down to Panama, proven to be very effective, that the last case of malaria and yellow fever registered in this area goes way back down to 1907. He did a great job. Our no passengers, we charge $2.04 a ton. Now, if you have a 40-footer yacht, or if you have a barge or a tugboat or a military vessel that we consider equipment, we charge those $1.43 per displacement tonnage, which indicates that an average size vessel pays approximately $45,000 to use the Panama Canal. Now, if that same ship decided not to use the canal and to go around the tip of South America, it will be almost about $250,000 in operating costs, a minimum of about 22 days, 8,000 miles, plus all the danger that exists to go around the tip of South America.
Well, I guess it certainly would be worth the $45,000 or whatever to cut off 8,000 miles, and all the dangers are going, clear around the tip. And 8,000 miles, woo, that's a long way. We see the rain is still coming down. They had places for those of us that were very adventuresome to get out on the top deck up there. But you could see actually from the inside too. It was really great. Well, here we're coming up now to the first lock. Benny, how much did all this stuff cost? Anybody write a check for it?
Oh, I'm sure. Well, when at first, we got the rights from the French because they labored for like 20 years, something like that. But then they had problems financially and with disease and stuff. So the United States then signed the treaty by which they undertook to construct it. Mm-hmm. And they spent $40 million. No, they purchased it for $40 million. And since then, they went 10 years at $387 million and then $3 billion. But the figures sound terrible. But when you think about it, they have already recovered almost 2/3 of the cost of building it. Yeah, mm-hmm. Because they charge a big sum of money to go through the canals.
Right.
So when you think about billions of dollars, we spend billions of dollars lots of times here when you read what a
lot of things.
Yeah, right? But here, this is one way of getting your money back, mm-hmm. So you feel better about it. And besides, it's done so much good
Now, what's going to happen, though, now in the year 2000? You say it's going to go back to, the ownership will revert back to Panama, right?
Yeah, well.
Are we still going to be involved in it?
Sure. This was, the way it started, Marv, and to be sort of fair and with the treaty and all this sort of stuff, they formed what was called the Panama Canal Commission. That was a U.S. agency. Mm-hmm. And so they were going to operate the canal for 20 years during the transition period before we give it back. And the commission was supervised with a board. And for the first 10 years, a U.S. citizen served as the chief executive officer. Mm-hmm. Now in the year 2000, it's going to be reversed. And instead of a U.S. citizen serving as chief executive office, I have the title administrator. Doesn't that sound important?
Yep.
But anyway, a Panamanian will now be the administrator and the U.S. official will be the deputy. So it's going to, I guess, I don't know what it's going to do about prices and things like that.
Well, I guess that remains to be seen.
Yeah.
They are filling the lock here now, so you can see the water coming in so that it will raise our ship up. And the little electric cars that you see there, the mules. I don't know if you could take a look at that, but you can see that they're hooked onto various cables that are coming from the ship to the little electric car, and depending on how many feet you have as far as or how large a ship may happen to be depends on how many of those electric cars they're going to use. But right here we're noticing now the captain is up there, and I think this guy's a pilot, and these guys are getting drenched because they just put that little plastic thing on top of that, and hey, this guy, look at that container ship that's over there in front of us. He had to pay more than $45,000, I would imagine, to go through this thing. Anyway, excuse me just a minute, Betty.
Sure.
I was going to say, look for this because the captain was going, hey, we're going to have to do something about this real quick because this rain, this whole thing going to come down on us, and here we're the guys who are trying to get this ship through the locks here. So he called for some of the crew members to come up there and see if they could dump some of that water off before the whole thing, falls in. And we'll see what happens here in a minute. But there now you can see the cables, coming from the little electric car or the mule, and that's hooked then, of course, directly right onto our ship. And this is pulling us right now into the lock and through the locks. Now here's the guy up there. He's got a broom.
Watch out below!
Yeah, well, I look down there and say, hey, wait a minute, we can't throw all this water off here. We've got a bunch of passengers here that are standing underneath. We're going to have to get these people out of here real quick. So I think he sent somebody down there to usher them out.
Excuse me, would you mind leaving?
Yeah,
would you mind leaving?
Well, just for a minute, or you're going to get a little wetter than you actually are. And this happened every time the ship moved a little bit. It was collecting water from all sorts of different places. So the captain's looking out there now. He's going to make sure. Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
Get everybody
It's
back.
okay, sir.
Yeah. And there it comes. Look at that. Whoa. There was a lot of water.
Well, there was more than it actually shows there.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was a small area to collect the water. But you
It
know,
was- it was great.
it was exciting.
It
Truly, it was. You're looking at this and you're thinking.
Because later on in the day, there wasn't any
This-
rain. It got very, very
got
warm.
warm,
So it was
yeah.
nice that we had both, the rain and the sunshine while we went through the Panama Canal.
And
It
for
was
those
wonderful.
that don't want to observe it, I mean, we have so many locks to go through, so many. Well,
And you
that
can sit
you
in-
go inside
sit
and
inside.
watch
A
it
lot
through.
of
There's
people did that.
at the windows there,
Sure.
so take your choice.
That's right. That's right. Now it was a lot of fun. You see, there they go, right back.
Move it over. Move over. That was my
Well,
spot.
Everybody wants to take a look, and I was up here in this little area where this water's coming down. A little bit early, there were 3 of us brave souls up there, but it finally started coming down so much there. I said, I think I better get out of here because we want to keep the camera dry.
Yeah, that camera's. Forget you. That camera's important.
Right.
We have 3 stages at this lock. You can also see the electric views of locomotives. They are to keep us centered. One of the first major equipment changes in the canal was the replacement of the original G locomotive that operated for over 50 years in the canal from 1914 to 1964 by the Japanese built towing locomotives. So in the mid-50s, we switched from 25 to 60 cycles in preparation for the arrival of the new electric towing locomotives. So in 1964, the Canal Organization ordered 57 of these Japanese locomotives, each one at a cost of $115,000 that weighs 55 tons, and each cable has a tension of 35,000 pounds on the ship. But back in 1979, we had to reorder some more of these Mitsubishi locomotives, and when we went back to the Japanese company, the prices went up from $115,000 to $750,000 per locomotive. And again in '86, we ordered some new ones, $1.2 million apiece. And just a few months ago, Mitsubishi again won another bid, and we ordered 20 new ones. And the new ones, each one would have cost over $3 million. So the numbers of user locomotives depends on the size of the vessel.
Boy, you talk about inflation, huh?
Oh, that's outrageous.
That's really something. But let's tell people that we have another trip going to the Panama Canal, Betty, and that's going to be when?
That's going to be April the 3rd. And we already have a real fine group that have signed up and have their cabin assignments. And I think it's going to be just a really good, well, I know it is. I
It'll
don't
be a great
think.
trip, yeah.
No, it's going to be a good trip. So if any of you out there watching this are saying, I've always wanted to go through the Panama Canal, well, then now's your chance. Do it while we are still in charge and not the deputy.
Not the deputy.
Not the deputy, yeah.
Well,
So-
give Betty a call in at 488-7443, and she'll get information to you right away, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.